All right, so today we're going to dive into Franz Rosenzweig.
Okay.
So Rosenzweig, he was a pretty major figure in kind of reshaping modern Jewish thought. He lived, let's see, 1886 to 1929.
Yeah.
And really fascinating guy, really unique thinker.
Yeah, he had a really interesting intellectual journey. He started out kind of engaged with that whole, was it the Neo-Hegelian revival
Right.
in Germany back in the 1910s? And, so when you think about that early engagement, it makes his kind of radical departure from that framework later on even more striking.
Absolutely. And that departure really fueled his ambitious project after World War I.
Right.
He called it a total renewal of thinking, and he was really going for this powerful synthesis of philosophy and theology. I mean, what do you make of that, with your own philosophical background? What's your take on this aspiration for a total renewal of thinking?
Well, I think it's pretty audacious, right? I mean, to aim for a total renewal after the First World War, after all that intellectual and physical devastation,
Yeah.
it suggests that he really had this deep conviction that the existing philosophical tools just weren't adequate to address the human condition. I mean, think about it. And then the deliberate weaving together of philosophy and theology, that's also really significant, given that they often had separate trajectories in modern intellectual history.
Right. And his influence was pretty substantial. I mean, especially when you look at how his concept of revelation, how he talks about this call from what he termed the absolute other, really impacted 20th century, both Jewish and Christian theology. And then there are his reflections on the, kind of the finite nature of human existence, how we experience time. That really resonated with existentialist thought as it was developing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you look at the kind of the broader landscape of 20th century philosophy, you can see that Rosenzweig was really grappling with some of the central themes of the era.
Yeah.
The nature of the self, the encounter with transcendence, the lived reality of time. And I think, his work really provided distinct alternatives to some of the paths that other major thinkers were kind of forging.
Right. And then you have his dialogical IU philosophy, right? Where he's emphasizing this this foundational importance of, interpersonal relationships, not just for self-understanding, but for the very fabric of community.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a very different way of understanding the individual compared to, some of those more solitary conceptions that you find in philosophy sometimes.
Right. And it raises a fundamental question about the constitution of subjectivity. I mean, Rosenzweig argues that our sense of self isn't this pre-existing, isolated entity. It actually emerges and is sustained through these authentic encounters with others.
Right.
And that has clear ethical and social implications. It kind of suggests this deep-seated interconnectedness at the heart of human experience.
Absolutely. And beyond his core philosophical work, he actually collaborated with Martin Buber on a groundbreaking German translation of the Bible, which must have been, a huge undertaking.
It was a monumental effort. And it's interesting, too, because their approach to translation was itself a philosophical act. They weren't just aiming to capture the literal meaning, but they also wanted to kind of convey the rhythm of the original, even its kind of perceived spoken quality.
Yeah.
They believed that translation could revitalize a language and bridge cultural divides.
Right. And in Frankfurt, he founded the Lehrhaus, right?
Yeah.
The Center for Jewish Adult Education, which continues to be, a lot of people see it as an innovative model for adult education. It wasn't about this passive reception of knowledge, but really about active engagement with Jewish tradition and the texts.
Yeah, and what's particularly insightful about the Lehrhaus, I think, is its pedagogical innovation. By intentionally including teachers who weren't necessarily considered absolute authorities, Rosenzweig really cultivated this community that was centered on shared inquiry.
Right.
Really prioritizing the learner's own questions and their individual paths to understanding.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And his own life story is also incredibly compelling, right? I mean, you have this near conversion to Christianity, then a return to Judaism, writing his most important work while serving in World War I, even, choosing communal work over a traditional academic career, and then continuing to contribute intellectually even after becoming paralyzed by ALS. I mean, it's pretty amazing.
It is. It's hard to to separate the impact of his ideas from the sheer intensity of his life, right?
Yeah.
I mean, his personal journey, marked by this profound intellectual and spiritual searching, undoubtedly shaped his philosophical concerns. And I think it lends this unique weight and urgency to his writings.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's delve a little deeper here.
Yeah.
Our focus today is really going to be on what a lot of people consider his most significant work. That's the Star of Redemption.
Yeah, the Star of Redemption, you can think of it as his philosophical edifice.
Okay.
It's a comprehensive system that seeks to understand the entirety of existence and humanity's place within that totality. It's a bold undertaking. It kind of echoes the scope of classical German idealism, but it's approached with his distinct new thinking.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And at the heart of it, you have this crucial role of revelation and the idea that both Judaism and Christianity actually offer unique and essential pathways towards achieving this redemptive unity. It's not just abstract philosophical speculation. It's really interwoven with these theological claims about how we come to know and relate to the divine.
Exactly. I mean, for Rosenzweig, Revelation isn't just, a historical event recorded in Scripture. It's a fundamental conceptual and methodological tool for understanding the dynamic relationships between God, humanity, and the world. And the way he treats Judaism and Christianity, it's not about establishing this hierarchy. It's really about exploring their distinct and complementary contributions to this overarching vision of redemption.
Right. And the star itself is structured in a really deliberate three-part form. First, you have the elements, God, world, and self. Second, you have the course of their relations, creation, revelation, and redemption. And then finally, you have the figure of the star itself as this unifying symbol. I mean, it's a carefully constructed intellectual framework.
It is, and the tripartite structure really reflects his systematic ambition, right? He's building his philosophical understanding step by step, starting with these fundamental components, then examining their dynamic interactions, and culminating in this potent symbolic representation of their ultimate interconnectedness.
So, for you as someone who's deeply immersed in philosophical inquiry, I mean, what are some of the aha moments, the things that really stand out when you encounter the Star of Redemption? What makes it such a significant and enduring contribution to philosophical thought?
Well, one immediate aha moment, I think, is Rosenzweig's kind of radical departure from the old thinking. By grounding his system not in some abstract pre-existing absolute like you see in German idealism, but in the very finitude of the human being, and specifically the inescapable reality of death. This immediately anchors his philosophy in lived experience. In a way that really distinguishes it.
That's a huge shift, right? He's starting with death. This very personal and definitive particularity, right? It's like the entry point to understanding the all. I mean, it's almost a reversal of the traditional philosophical quest for these universal, timeless truths.
Exactly. I mean, he sees the human fear of death, as revealing this fundamental chasm between the individual self and the encompassing world, right? And also our direct confrontation with nothingness, right? But crucially, he emphasizes the deeply personal nature of this nothingness. It's my own mortality that I face, right? Not just mortality in general.
Right. And this emphasis on the the particularity of nothingness, this becomes a central pillar of his critique of German idealism.
Right.
He argues that beginning with this, undifferentiated universal nothing ultimately fails to account for the rich diversity and specific character of the beings that we encounter.
That's a really key point, I think, in understanding his project. Rosenzweig contends that if everything originates from this single undifferentiated ground, then genuine individuality and distinctness are inevitably lost or diluted. He insists that each fundamental category of being God, world, and self must be understood as emerging from its own unique nothing.
So instead of one singular origin point, we have these three distinct sources.
Exactly.
Each generating its own form of being. That's a fundamentally different starting point for a philosophical inquiry.
It is. And he describes this process of self-generation through this fascinating dynamic involving affirmation. Yes and negation, no, right? Uniting writing in this in an and.
Okay.
Think of it like this. For God, yes is infinite being, no is the absence of limitation, and the and is the dynamic reality of divine existence.
Okay.
Right? For the world, it's logos and the multiplicity of particulars, and for the self, it's enduring identity and free will.
So it's as though each element is constituting itself through this inherent tension and its resolution.
Right.
Even connects this to the German concept of Tatasche.
Mm.
Right, the unity of fact and indeed.
Exactly. This dual structure, this inherent factuality, is what enables each element to maintain its being out of its respective nothingness.
Right.
Right. They aren't reducible to some prior unity. They're fundamentally real and distinct in their own right.
But these elements, as he introduces them in the first part of the Star, they're still, they're somewhat abstract philosophical constructs, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, he refers to them as hypothetical, right?
Right.
So the first part kind of lays the necessary groundwork, by establishing these independent elements and exploring their internal structures. The second part is where these elements enter into dynamic interaction, and this is where the theological dimension of his thought becomes central.
Okay, so here we move to the course of relations.
Right.
Creation, revelation, and redemption. Now, these are traditionally theological concepts.
Yeah.
But Rosenzweig actually uses them to explain the actuality of our lived experience.
Right.
And the relationships between its foundational elements.
Yeah. What's particularly insightful here, I think, is how Rosenzweig maps these theological categories onto the interrelations of God, world, and self.
Mm-hmm.
So creation is understood as God turning towards the world,
Mm-hmm.
revelation as God turning towards the self, and redemption as the self in turn acting lovingly within the world.
And he argues that these relations are essential for the elements to really realize their own being, right?
Exactly.
God only becomes fully God through the acts of creation and revelation. The world only becomes fully world through creation and the possibility of redemption. And the self only achieves its true selfhood through revelation and its participation in redemption.
Yeah, absolutely. There's this mutual dependence and reciprocal fulfillment that's inherent in these relationships.
Yeah.
And Rosenzweig introduces this concept of a reversal, or turning within each element as it enters into relation with the others.
Okay.
Right, where its inherent yes and no poles are kind of reoriented.
It's a complex but fascinating interplay between these fundamental aspects of existence.
Yeah.
And he's arguing that these relations aren't just abstract connections; they're actually the very foundation of our lived reality.
Yes, I mean our experience of the world as something already existing, right? As a given. That's linked to the ongoing act of creation, our awakening to self-awareness and moral responsibility in the present moment is revelation, and our striving towards shared meaning and purpose in the future is the unfolding of redemption.
Yeah.
He's really grounding these grand theological concepts in the immediacy of human experience.
And this connection, this intricate connection between that abstract philosophical framework, that he established in the first part, and the concrete lived experience, that he describes through these theological categories. In the second part, this is really a hallmark of his new thinking, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
He sees it as this mutually reinforcing relationship between philosophical inquiry and theological understanding.
Yeah, philosophy's abstract constructs kind of find their concrete realization and meaning within theology's account of actuality.
Yeah.
And theology, in turn, finds the necessary conceptual conditions for its account within philosophy's foundational structures. This reciprocal confirmation, I think, is a key characteristic of his new thinking.
And within this course of relations, revelation seems to hold a particularly central position, much like it did in his earlier work, Atheistic Theology. It's this crucial moment of divine human encounter.
For Rosenzweig, revelation is far more than just, this divine communication of information.
Yeah.
It's the very act that awakens the individual self to its own freedom, its unique individuality, and orients it within the intricate web of these fundamental relations. It's the call to embrace our role in the ongoing movement towards redemption.
And this leads us directly to his concept of speech thinking, which he introduces in the second part of the Star.
Right.
He sees language as fundamentally intertwined with our experience of time, and absolutely crucial for understanding these unfolding relations.
Yeah, Rosenzweig argues that speech with its inherent temporal structure, its tenses, its capacity for naming and narrating events across time, and its essential role in dialogue. It's just far better suited than abstract, timeless reason to grasp the unfolding dynamics of creation, revelation, and redemption.
Right. He sees narrative, dialogue, and even communal forms of expression, like a liturgical song, as these different modalities of speech that accompany and even actively constitute these fundamental relations. It's almost as if language itself is this living medium through which these core connections are made and experienced.
Precisely. Speech isn't merely this passive tool for describing a pre-existing reality. It's actively involved in shaping, mediating, and even realizing that reality, particularly in the realm of interpersonal relationships and our encounter with the divine. And the IU dialogue in particular is absolutely central to his understanding of revelation and the awakening of the self.
And by the end of the second part, he presents this really powerful image of the Star of Redemption.
Yeah.
Right? This six-pointed star formed by the three fundamental elements and the three dynamic relations.
Right.
And it serves as this visual and symbolic representation of his entire philosophical system.
Yeah. The star symbolizes the complex unity of the all. Right. That emerges from the dynamic and ongoing interplay of God, world, and self through creation, revelation, and redemption. And it's interesting. It's a deliberate departure from the traditional philosophical symbol of the circle. It's just a different kind of wholeness.
Yeah.
One that's achieved through active relation and engagement rather than pure self-enclosure or static completeness.
So if this ultimate unity, this state of redemption, is something that's projected in the future, how can we really have knowledge of it or participate in it in the present? I mean, that's where the third and final part of the Star comes in, right?
Yeah.
Focusing on these specific roles of Judaism and Christianity in this redemptive process.
Exactly. And this is where Rosenzweig introduces this idea of communal anticipation.
Okay.
He argues that the specific practices, rituals, and liturgical calendars of Jewish and Christian communities provide their members with a tangible way to kind of anticipate the ultimate redemptive unity within the flow of historical time.
So these distinct religious traditions, they're offering a kind of foretaste, a presentiment or a lived experience in the present of this future redemption. And he sees them as offering a form of guarantee or assurance of this ultimate future unity.
Yes, but he also posits complementary and distinct roles for them in the actual realization of redemption.
Okay.
Right. So Judaism, through its focused communal life and adherence to its traditions, perpetually anticipates the ultimate unity. Keeps its promise alive.
Right.
While Christianity, through its outward-reaching mission of love and its call to all humanity, actively works to unite the globe and bring about that final reconciliation.
So it's a fascinating and, for some, I imagine, a potentially controversial view of these two major religions, seeing them as both fundamentally distinct in their practices and yet absolutely essential and complementary in this overarching drama of the redemption of the all.
Yeah, and Rosenzweig believed that Christianity needed the constant witness and reminder of Judaism's enduring anticipation of unity, while Judaism's more inwardly focused existers needed the outward dynamism of Christian love to propel the world towards its ultimate redemptive goal.
And so ultimately this philosophical quest for knowledge of the all kind of culminates in this vision of the Star of Redemption, where he even touches upon the very face of God.
Right.
But this profound vision it doesn't lead to philosophical withdrawal or contemplation.
Hmm.
It actively directs us back into the concrete reality of the world.
Right. The vision of the star isn't this end point in itself, some static truth to be passively contemplated,
Yeah.
but rather this powerful call to action. It sends us back into life, into the sphere of our everyday interactions to actively participate in the ongoing redemptive task of unifying the all through our interpersonal relationships and our engagement with the world.
And this leads to his important and somewhat unique concept of the verification of truth.
Yeah.
He's suggesting that we don't just passively grasp the truth of this ultimate unity through intellectual contemplation, but rather we actively verify its reality by working towards its realization in the world, through our ethical actions and our loving encounters with others.
Right. For Rosenzweig, truth isn't this static concept to be intellectually apprehended. It's a dynamic, ongoing process in which we're actively engaged.
Yeah.
We demonstrate the truth of the all's ultimate unity, not through abstract arguments alone, but through our lived actions and our commitment to fostering connection and overcoming division in the world.
And even in his later life, facing these immense physical challenges with ALS, he's continued to work with the Lair House and his profoundly influential theory of translation. All of that continued to reflect these core ideas of connection, the rejuvenation of meaning, and this overarching movement towards a unified understanding.
Yeah, his work on translation, viewing it not just as this technical exercise, but as this dynamic process of linguistic rejuvenation, and even as a potential contribution to the eventual harmonization of all languages. It directly echoes his overarching vision of a redemptive future where divisions are overcome and understanding prevails.
Okay, so as we draw this deep dive into the Star of Redemption to a close, can you give our listener a quick recap of the core elements of Rosenzweig's profound and challenging system?
Okay, so in essence, Rosenzweig's philosophy in the Star, it marks this radical departure from the dominant old thinking of German idealism.
Mm-hmm.
He posits these fundamental independent elements of God, world, and self, each arising from its own unique nothing.
Right.
Their dynamic interrelation unfolds through these theological categories of creation, revelation, and redemption, a process he understands through his new thinking concepts.
Right.
This includes the emphasis on the individual's lived experience, the crucial significance of temporality and speech thinking as this primary means of understanding these unfolding relations. The Star of Redemption serves as the central symbol of the envisioned unity of the all, which emerges from this dynamic interplay. He viewed Judaism and Christianity as distinct communities that both anticipate and actively contribute in complementary ways to the realization of this ultimate redemption.
Yeah.
And finally, he emphasized verification as the active human participation in this ongoing redemptive process through ethical action and relationality.
So for you, our listener, deeply engaged in philosophical thought, consider this. How might Rosenzweig's profound emphasis on individual experience, beginning with that stark reality of mortality and the fundamentally relational nature of truth, challenge some of the more traditional abstract approaches to understanding the world and our place within it, you might have encountered? And does this idea of actively verifying truth through your own engagement and actions in the world resonate with your own understanding of knowledge and its validity? Perhaps this exploration will prompt you to delve further into Rosenzweig's rich and challenging ideas on dialogue and the transformative power of the I-you relationship as explored in his other writings. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.